Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Extreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have with me from Central Florida South the young 20-something Professor Pixel, who, in addition to watching all 1,225 episodes of Dark Shadows at some point and reviewing the revival with me, is now reviewing the Mission Impossible Season 1 full episodes. And tonight, Pixel, we're doing 17 and 18. And I got to tell you, one of the comments we've made doing these back-to-back episodes every week for the Season 1 of Mission Impossible is we've talked about how they've kind of pretty much stayed the same, how there's very little variance to them and all that. And it's Saturday night popcorn TV. That's not a bad thing. I feel that these two episodes are not bad, but they're exactly indicative of everything we've talked about. So, for example, episode 17, the first one we want to jump into, The Frame. I like this when it's more spy-ish and more just a simple setup and things happening and less action and guns and crap. It just feels like it's like a half a letter grade or a letter grade above than some of the other episodes in general. I thought this was not a dark episode, but kind of a more serious one, I guess. You know, hot women trapeze artists, right? No goofs or whatever like this. This was pretty cool. And again, let me push my soundboard button that says, "Yeah, Roland gets to shine again." Ding, 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 ding. Overall, I think it's good. In the second episode here, at number 18, that is not bad either. But we'll get to that in a moment. What's your initial take into this episode? Get us into it.
Well, I think you're right. You're right about something about it being more of a thriller along the way is more exciting than when, we have to face this threat and they're interacting with them commonly. But in this one, they're on the side. They're catering a dinner.
That's kind of cool, though, I think.
Yeah, it's really cool. All the meanwhile, you have the one team that they go ahead and show. They got to get something for the black guy to do, which is try to get into the safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, setting up Roland. This time he's a deaf waiter, but he has to act deaf. You have these cool moments like when the guy pulled out a gun on him and then shot right by his ear. I was thrilled. It felt more dangerous than usual.
Yeah, that's a good call because this one just the setup. It's you got some people that were mysteriously in accidents, and so they're going to get replaced by, like, say, these mafia types, right? And of course, if you noticed, one I popped really hard because the main guy, who's a bit of an asshole and he's very good at being it, is it looks like it's Kolchak's boss, right? The Hawaiian dude, is that sounding guy. So I was like, oh, this guy's a real prick to Kolchak, and he's exactly that way here. And I'm starting to see that in all these shows, even though we haven't necessarily seen all these actors and actresses full catalog. You almost get a hint that, boy, talk about typecasting people. They are exactly the same. If you're ugly, you are going to be a goon. If you're hot, you're going to be a hero. If you're going to be an asshole, you're going to be somebody's boss. I mean, talk about not really getting your boundaries expanded there a little bit, but it was pretty cool here. And to your point, the team goes undercover catering, and so it's funny because the main dude Dan gets involved in doing. We see him normally in his swinging singles bachelor pad, kind of sit back a little bit, take 4 or 5 minutes out, deciding who he's going to pick and all that too, and then talking about it. I don't know why I like these things, because he takes this aptitude test, right, and he fails intentionally, I guess, to get the right thing. These things are so stupid, but I like it. And to your point, when Roland's like, supposed to be this deaf waiter, because the only people that these criminals will have host their party is this one dude, so they make it like they're a part of this team. And what's really cool, and this popped me too, is that he keeps the not the jewels, but the money, the good stuff, down in the wine cellar in the safe, right? So while they're out there catering to all these bad guys and stuff, what they're trying to do is take the money out of it and not steal it, but set him up so they'll kill him so nothing will happen, right? And so then that's where they get Cinnamon involved upstairs, which I'll mention here in a minute what she does, and kind of set him up at the end where they're going to take care of business the family way, right? I mean, that's all there is to it. There's not a big, huge action thing to me and all that. This was, like you said, I think you described it perfectly. It's like a thriller.
Yeah, and I think actually, Ed Brewer, She-Hulk was consistently bad. There's a difference. But for this one, they do steal the money. The goal isn't to steal the money. The goal is to set him up and steal the money. But yeah, no, you get this feeling from this mob guy that he has his friends there. He's trying to show off. His mouth is watering when the lamb comes out, the main course, and it's just, it feels like they are. It feels. I'm trying to think of it. Think of the right word. They're basically like greedy pigs.
They are. They're talking about how they do stuff with the old ways, right? And you know how things are and how they're going to implement. And it's like, okay, yeah, they are greedy. You know, pigs get fed, and what is it? Hogs get slaughtered is the old expression. They're hogs here.
Yeah, well, the main guy's the hog.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because I think one of the dynamics that I noticed, I don't think the show really emphasized here in this episode, is that the main guy, the asshole, um, he's a bit of a dick. Like, you know, everything's got to be perfect. The meal, the wine, and all that. So he's very particular. But you can tell that the other people don't quite trust him, and it's one of those things where, like, you would see, like, maybe in a Bond movie or something, where if you've got culture and taste and you can respect somebody on those levels, you can be enemies but still be like on the same playing field. And if this guy was maybe a bit more sophisticated rather than, you know, streetwise, you know, kind of thuggish like an asshole to these other dudes, and tried treating them on the same level, then maybe they wouldn't have whacked him at the end, because it's legit. You know, they what happens at the end is they go down there at the end to check out the money, and the team is supposed to have left, and he's like, you guys come back in the morning and clean up. So he goes back in there and he opens up and he's like, just this is my favorite line. He's like, this is just like the good old days, where he opens it up because it's in the wine racks, and you had seen Barney, like you had said, drilling through the top and figuring out a way to get it out. And he's like, and one of the guys goes in there, he's like, this isn't funny. And they're all look at it. He's like, what? It's like, oh, come on, I've been set up. He doesn't panic or like that. He's annoyed. And he looks up and goes, see, here in the ceiling. And they're like, but how long has it been gone? Who else has been here? And that's when they're not going to screw around at all. And that's when you're like, oh, they got it. That's the kind of shit that I like, rather than just a shootout. Okay, the guy's dead, or we extricated somebody out of some place, like we've seen in a few episodes already, and then lo and behold, there's a car chase at the end, boom, roll credits. This one was a bit more, had more bad feelings to it in a way. It was this is deliciously evil a little bit. I think I really liked it.
Yeah, no,
it just had a great vibe to it,
because they go ahead and at the end you have Cinnamon set up there to basically just hide in the back, get yourself noticed by the second hand, whoever you're supposed to be, and then have her keep it a secret, have him keep it a secret, and that way at the end when he's spiraling, there was no one else in the house, there's no one else who knows. The guy realizes there's a girl up there.
Yep.
Takes them all up, and she sets him up. And she only gets away with it because she's a woman.
You know what? And you're right. And she's got so little to do. But what she does is, I love the shot of the scene where they kind of go upstairs with it, and she's there on the bed, and she's not there, you know, showing whatever like that. She's laying on her belly, and she's up like she's reading a magazine or something like that. She's got her legs kind of crossed, hanging up, and she kind of turns around. And she does such a great job of basically making it seem like he knows her. And he's like, I don't know her. I don't know what you're talking about. And then, of course, they show her basically like panicking because she realizes she's in deep. And, of course, they can't trust her because she's a broad. And then she's standing at the wall there. And then she does the thing with her eyes where she kind of looks over at the this is something that's so cliche. I despise it. And I don't know how far back it goes. Maybe it goes back in the literature and it just made its way into movies and TV, right? But remember how they drilled the hole out of the wine to take the money out from the ceiling above it, and then here they had drilled another hole in it to kind of put it into the safe there that was hidden behind that one picture. She kind of just looks at the picture, and then you all realize, oh, she's trying not to tell us, but her eyes gave it away. And then they find it, and it's like, oh, really? And I'm like, okay, that's what Cinnamon is supposed to do. She's good at it. Great. I want one of these episodes to hear at the end it not go right. And I don't mean like the rope fails, they got to find another way to get out of a house or a jam or anything like that. I want one of these things because everything has to hit. It's incredible, but it's also a bit, like I say, not as thriller espionage oriented like this episode was. The whole idea of seeing them all there and like making food and serving them and not really doing anything, it was just funny to me.
Yeah.
Any other
Yeah.
thoughts on this episode?
Oh,
Hello.
sorry, alarms and stuff. My thoughts on this episode. I just really think it's solid. I enjoy the aspect of them working around the problem rather than being directly involved. And it's funny because this is a setup, and the next one is kind of a setup too.
Yeah. The trial. Why don't you take us into that?
Okay. Basics of the trial. Basically, Dan, our man, the main star, that isn't always the star, it's more role in hand, allows himself to be arrested.
And why does he do that, sir?
To go ahead and set up this public prosecutor. And he's a great actor. I don't know why. It's obviously not, but he reminded me so much of Orson Welles in a way. And not just because he was big with a beard. It's just something about his manner.
I'll have plenty to say here in a moment, but go ahead.
And basically they go ahead and they set up, with role in hand, they bring back the mask disguise.
Yes.
So that way he's out somewhere meeting with his lover, his crap. There's the term that they used in the show itself. His mistress. He calls his mistress, I'm a friend of Frank's. And Roland, disguised as Dan, meets her, goes ahead and sets that up while the real Dan is meeting with the head of state, or not the head of state, but crap. What was he? The state.
He's some head guy that basically they got a prosecutor that they want to basically tarnish his reputation so he'll be ineffective going forward.
Because he has political interests.
Yes. We can't allow that to germinate, especially if it's in a quote unquote, how do I want to say this? A Red Scare region, let's say a communist friendly regime. I mean, the show really does dance around all those things here too. But I wanted to point out that Joseph, the main dude here, that you said kind of reminds you of Orson Welles, maybe because your parents might have seen him in commercials like "We will sell no wine until you pay for it" and other things like that. This guy's Carol O'Connor, which means nothing to you, but I wanted to ask you this in all seriousness: have you ever heard of the show All in the Family?
Yes, I have.
This is him.
Yes, it's him. I can tell now.
Yeah, and
I saw a picture of him outside of
his
look on the show, and yeah, no, I know him.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to point out too here is that we have a wide-ranging audience here on Xtreme Movie Show when we do the TV reviews and all. That's interesting because we've done a lot of newer stuff, and we have done some old stuff, and some of our long-term listeners have mentioned some older shows as well. And I'm a huge fan of, like, say, The Fugitive, and the comments making here in chat about episodes being fairly consistent. A lot of TVs that way. One of the themes on the Xtreme Movie Show that we talk about being 80s based, because that's when I grew up, and you being the young guy and RDV being the middle-aged guy, is that these patterns, the more we talk about them, we compare them and we see what goes on. And TV was actually very well written, and there was a lot of great actors. And I'd mentioned for the last episode that being a character actor is not necessarily a bad thing. You get to star in a lot of things, and a lot of people in the old TV studio system cut their teeth on what was the most popular form of movies and television, which was Westerns. Okay. So I'm sure there's a lot of actors here that we don't necessarily may know too well, because I did not grow up watching, High Chaparral or Bonanza or Gunsmoke. I remember them being all my parents watching them, but Mission Impossible is always one of them. Like, okay, I know this guy, Peter Graves. I know that Spock from Star Trek, and everybody's, I think, who's a fan of this channel is at least familiar with the original Star Trek series. I know I am. And so here, when you see someone like Carroll O'Connor, before he becomes on one of the most popular TV shows of all time, you're like, no, he just isn't Archie Bunker. He's a good actor. And a lot of people spend a lot of time acting in bit roles like this until they fall in the show where they're the lead or they're a breakout or they hit it movies. And there wasn't a ton of crossover between movies and television too. And I think the fact that Mission Impossible is one of those episodes or TV shows for whatever reason that seemed to be very strong and consistent for 6-7 years. I don't know the backstory on how it rebooted in the 80s. I just remember that it did, and Peter Graves is a part of it, so it kind of always had me interested in it. And I think that obviously with Tom Cruise putting the resources behind it and staying true to it maintains popularity. But I definitely think this whole idea of that we keep saying in all these episodes is, okay, they're all pretty much the same. We've got kind of a unique setup. We don't know necessarily who's going to be in each episode, which is not a bad thing. But to your point, whether, we've had a few courtroom situations, we had a few extractions, we've had a few other type of themes to it. We're interested and curious to see how it unfolds and what they can do with it. And I think here, the only letdown for me in this episode was that it was a little bit of a trial thing going on. I'm not a big fan of trials on television or in movies, but that's me personally. But I'm not saying it was not done well or it wasn't engaging. But to me, Carroll O'Connor, watched it, I was like, oh my God, I always remember it was Archie Bunker. And everybody thinks of the show of him being stupid. And the show was written for him to be a character where you made fun of him because everybody else on the show was super liberal. But the thing is most people liked him. And so it kind of had the opposite effect of what the creators were intentionally trying to do. And I just wanted to point that out because it's such a big time TV show that dominated the 70s. But again, catching him here early, guy was really, really good. And he was believable. I give Carroll O'Connor a lot of credit in this role because I thought for heavy, we've seen some guys that are rather forgettable, I think, but I thought he was one of the best ones. This is actually a very good episode. It's just not one of my personal favorites in terms of what I like, but I thought it was very strong, probably even stronger than the last episode that we just talked about, The Frame. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. It's really one of those episodes that makes you realize that those were the days. I can just imagine your deadpan stare right now. It's
no comment.
It's piercing. But yeah, no, he's got such strength as this figure. It's really impressive. But what's also impressive is the team working against him. It's just Raw in hand, and it's Dan the man, and he's actually getting something to do again. So
yeah, 2 for 2.
These 2 episodes, he's here. I know we're saying goodbye to him in like 3, but he's really good. He plays. It's not a comedy, but he plays the straight man so well. And him being arrested, all that. I enjoyed Rollin kind of taking. It's weird because it's like he's taking initiative, but he's also taking somewhat of a back seat. I enjoyed him in the trial itself. I enjoy trials on television. Actually, it's one of those other things. You hate them, but I find them interesting. I find them fun. But him going ahead and trying to prove, well, he's making this up. This is all bullshit.
Yeah.
And I also liked Archie Bunker's, Carroll O'Connor's, his sidekick, his assistant who was arranging. Oh well, we'll go ahead and shoot their main star witness. We'll go ahead and maybe he could have a suicide. It wouldn't be the first time that that someone on trial would go ahead and just hang themselves. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the thing with trials to me is that it's it just feels forced. It's like the ticking time bomb. Yeah, okay, for it to really work, the bomb's got to go off. I don't want to see it. The wire. I don't want you guessing. 1, 2, 3, red, white, blue, whatever, black, and you clip it and it works and it ends at 007. It's a bit of a lark to me. I just don't care for it. And trials are kind of like the safe
human equivalent
type bombs. Yeah, it's just it doesn't. It's not drama to me. Okay, you're guilty. All right, we're going to appeal. I mean, it's like, come on. I don't know. I'm not saying there's not good acting or some intensity in it, but they're boring to me because honestly, I'm going to go back to something I mentioned before. We like these characters. We like to see them do things because as they're doing things, we get to see how they are as a person. And Cinnamon, honestly, even though she's shown up the most, is probably as much as Roland has, not quite, but almost more than the other two, certainly more than Barney. You're like, okay, she's she's a femme fatale sort of. What more can you do? Because I'm getting tired of you. Bat your eyelashes, be coy, and that's it. Okay, what else do you got? Roland, we've seen him do a lot of different things, so he's like way up there. Barney, okay, hey, Barney Electronics or whatever the thing says when he's looking at you and picks you. I go, yeah, he's gonna pass on you, guy. It's like you're a card and you're exchanging it, you're folding it or something because you're not in that in half the episodes. And it's nice to see Dan with a change up, right? And then of course we get the weightlifter guy back too. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. So it's if you like the characters, the story can be kind of shitty, right? Like it's like music. The music's what moves you. It's not really the words, I think. And I'm not saying that can't be important or meaningful, but we put our own attachments to it. And when you're watching a lot of people talk back and forth, the prosecution, the defense, the this, that, the judges, the staring at each other. Who gives a flying fuck? You're busy talking. I don't give a shit. Do something. Stop talking. Serve wine, okay? Have the gun go off by your eardrum where you have to watch him not react to it, and then as soon as he gets in the other rooms, they mess with the audio, right? So it sounds like we can appreciate. Oh my god, that was really a big deal. That's cool shit, bro. But yeah, the trial stuff's just kind of weak. But thankfully, to me, it didn't really dominate it, but it was done good. I got to say that some stuff isn't, but these two, honestly, out of all the pairs of episodes, I'll close with this when I put them together, even though the second one's not my cup of tea, I think these two back to back were the strongest episodes we've seen. I really liked the circus one, but I don't remember the other one that was with it. But these two back to back are really good. And there was one guy early on that we saw that they were trying to break out of a jail somewhere, who the actor himself was a name, but wasn't familiar with him. I remember we were commenting on how good he seemed to be, that character actor, and that guy had a really long history. I remember talking about it on that stream. This is probably the best pair of episodes so far.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. And that's not in a way like we said in the comments. This show is consistent. It's not a bad consistent though. It's constant good. These are exceptional episodes in a slot that hasn't really had any true misses. Like, even if we haven't been satisfied with an episode, nothing in it made it said, oh, well, this was just bad television. No, absolutely not. Mission Impossible has been one of the best series we've probably reviewed on this channel because of the consistent quality of the writing, the acting, sets, all of it. It's really astounding. And these two just highlight a fantastic series.
Yeah, and I think what piqued my interest in doing this is because not only being an older show, but when they had rebooted the show in the 80s and Peter Graves is in there from the University of Minnesota. He the Golden Gophers, by the way. He I saw a few episodes here and there. My understanding then was they were a little bit liberal with taking some of the plots of these older episodes and updating them. But of course, even then, the quality that you would see in the 60s between now in terms of just the broadcast filming ratios and all that's going to be different. You have a much more higher chance of the Peter Graves reboot one where it's going to look nicer than here. I wish I could see these updated ones better, but you get some stock footage thrown there and this and that. So there's a visual quality that, while the sets are nice and everything too, it has that cheap kind of feel to it or whatever. And that's not a knock. That's just the reality of a lot of television in the 60s and even 70s and 80s. And actually you could argue the same thing with a lot of your sitcoms, whether it was Friends or any of these popular ones. Seinfeld, just the way the things are set up, it's almost like a play a little bit. So yeah, good stuff here. And we've got a few more pairs to go before we finish up season 1. So I want to thank all the people that showed up tonight checking us out with that. It's been one of our, I hate to say it, one of our more consistent viewings that we get from people. Most people don't really talk too much about it, but the numbers are consistently there, which is a good thing. It's not higher, it's not low. And a little symbiotic relationship there too. We'll be closing down here right now and get ready to go on our 7 o'clock stream with RDB from the Midwest. We're going to be reviewing Kurt Russell's Breakdown. And he's somebody that's a good example of you're going to watch it because you like him in it. And whether you like the movie or not, it's a whole nother matter. But I'm still hoping Mission Impossible here, Pixel, gets to where I actually like some of the characters and I want to see them. Rather than, right now I'm like, well, you can get rid of Barney and the other dude, and I'll just go watch Cinnamon Roll and go at it, and I'd be happy with that. The husband and wife, the heart to heart, if you will, but that's for you older types. Who knows? Maybe we'll do that at one day. All right, guys, for Professor Pix, everybody here at the Xtreme Movie Show, thanks for watching and listening. Have a good night. As always, stay extreme. I will check out those outtakes. I believe I have seen them. Ed, Paul Masson Wine, who will sell no wine before it's time. Have a good night now. Stay extreme.
This was not a Dan Curtis production.
Nor Quinn Martin. Good night now.